everyone, to week 2 of the Summer Split here in Berlin. Next up, we've got Rogue versus SK Gaming, one of the surprise teams in spring versus the surprise team so far in summer, Rogue. For Rogue, this split has been a huge success so far, if you take into account that they have won just as many games as they did in the entirety of spring in only 3 games. 2 already, so things are looking up for Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue is obviously already a much better team than they showed in spring, and it's keeping that same Ultra Liga roster that worked so well for them on the ERL stage, I think is already showing very good improvements, especially among our rookie players.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the rookie players, but we also have to look at the bottom lane who had, you know, a questionable performance. Also, they were camped a little bit in week 1, but VandeR and Woolite much better now in week 2 so far.
Yeah, what we saw out of them in that last game against Vitality, I mean, I know we've looked at it from the other side, like, Vitality, how could you? How on earth do you get level 1 kill on Sonataria? How do you do it?
Maybe they're just so good.
Exactly. These guys obviously are the best bot lane in the entirety of the world, because they're the only ones who can make that happen.
Is that the hard-hitting analysis?
No extremes, obviously.
No, you can only beat the teams that are in front of you, and beating Vitality was very important. And a lot of people were excited about this.
Yeah, this was such a sick play coming out of them in the bottom lane. There's a TP coming through from the Sona with the Tarkult coming on top. So when Prophet actually stays alive here, it's because that invulnerability is dropped by VandeR in the bottom lane. So Vitality, they think they have a free kill, but Prophet just has literally everything.
I had no idea you could do this, by the way. Like, I was casting this game, and then I saw that the animation there was like, that looks like a Tarkult to me, but maybe that's just the Sona shield. Yeah. Did that actually just happen? Yes, that actually happened. As a ridiculous mechanic.
Yeah, I don't think Vitality thought that was possible either, because that turret dive was rough.
Yeah, and if you win for Rogue at the end of the day versus Vitality, also when we look at some of the more specifics of how they've been playing, 100% first blood rate, they are generally even at 15 minutes and 20 minutes, decent objective control as well. So we're going to have to see how they do versus SK Gaming, because SK Gaming is a team we have high hopes for, because in their first split in spring, they immediately made it to the playoffs. When we look at the new member on that team, Sacre, what is the kind of rapport on him so far?
Well, it's been interesting, because I think week 1 was a bit of a disappointment. I had very high expectations for him coming in after seeing him do so well at EU Masters. But now that we've seen him and Selfmade work very well together in their game against G2 yesterday, we saw him get a solo kill up against WondeR and look very, very good, given that jungle attention that he's able to use to just snowball.
I think Selfmade is his friend in the sense that, yes, he sets him up for success, but kind of his enemy in the whole kind of view of why isn't Sacre right out the bat this amazing rookie? Because Selfmade was able to achieve that last year, but generally speaking, that's not the trend of what rookie players are able to do. Last game, though, for Sacre was a really confident performance, a much more impressive performance, and I think this has the potential to be one of the tops in the LEC.
Yeah, we have to see his development, of course, just a couple of games. You mentioned Selfmade there as well, and Selfmade is practically the only guy we talked about in spring, and rightfully so. He would almost carry games by himself out of that jungle position. We haven't seen as much of that. What, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is that a sign of development?
I actually think it is, because one of the interesting things is that his style of jungle has changed a little bit, especially back in week 1. We saw him be much more defensive in his pathing. And that doesn't mean he's necessarily passive. What it means is that he's protecting his vulnerable laners. And as a pro jungler on the LEC, this is something you need to be able to do and to adapt to. And with this sort of evolution from him, I think he's growing into a very fine jungler here in the LEC.
Something that really, really impresses me about watching Selfmade play is that he has an uncanny ability to always be in the right place at the right time. Like, if anything happens on SK's map, you can bet your bottom dollar this guy is going to be within the vicinity. Pretty much like you're saying, he's able to protect his weak sides as well. And it's like, you can't really teach that kind of thing. That is a testament to the talent that Selfmade has. And as he kind of rounds out as a player and as he grows as a player, we'll see him become, like, I mean, he's already a huge threat in the jungle, and it's going to be scary seeing him develop.
Well, the key is development, right? Because the way they went out at the end in the playoffs, we all remember the Infinity Edge moment and kind of the tweets afterward that didn't really speak of a lot of maturity for Selfmade, but you're allowed to do that if you're a new player. We want to see improvement as the time goes on, and I think that's why this game is very important, as he's up versus another Polish rookie jungler in Inspired.
Yeah, that's going to be a very fun matchup to watch, because I think Inspired has come in very similar to how Selfmade came in Spring Split. Inspired has been very consistent, finding early game ganks and securing a lot of kills on picks like the Rek'Sai, working very well with Larssen in the mid lane as well. Makes me think that this guy is actually one of our next up-and-coming junglers here in the LEC.
And he's only 17 years old. 2002. I'm ancient, by the way.
Yeah, look at all of us.
Like,
You know, we've been playing
what
for
the
so
heck?
long, and we're just like so bad compared to these guys. Which is,
Speak for yourself.
Okay.
I don't know what you're saying over there.
And there is the up-and-coming talent. We have a bit of a delay on stage, so that gives us some more time to look at this matchup. If we take a step back from in a macro sense, because we've talked a lot about these individuals, about the jungle and whatnot, but it's a hard one to predict, right? Because you have definite things that can go in Rogue's favor, but you kind of want to give it to SK Gaming because they have a bit more experience with this current roster.
I think experience is very important here. And Rogue have experience with their roster, right? Just not on the LEC stage. So it's very hard to judge where Rogue slot in if you were to create a tier list right now, because we've seen them pick up 2 wins, but their wins against the 2 worst teams in the LEC, Vitality and Excel here. So this game is very important for them to prove that they belong higher on those standings.
Yeah, if we just run down the opponents that these teams have had, as you say, Rogue 2 wins in versus Excel versus Vitality. They lost versus Misfits quite handily, I would say. And then SK Gaming lost to Fnatic. Yes, when you look at the current level of Fnatic, that's not something to be ashamed of. And they won versus Schalke 04 yesterday. And that's not true. I'm saying it. That's a lie. Slice lost to Schalke yesterday.
True.
So SK, of course. Who did they play yesterday? G2, of course. And they lost to G2 Esports. And this is also a hard one because you want to say you have to judge teams on kind of what they put on the table versus G2 Esports, but it doesn't take it off the table that they still lost that game pretty handedly.
No, I mean, like, honestly, SK did compete with them for the first, like, 15, 20 minutes, I felt like, especially when they were playing, like, smaller skirmish style of fights, you know, ganks around the top lane. There were a couple fights around the map as well, too, that went in their favor. What it came down to is when they were getting into these 5v5s, G2 just outclassed them in that regard. And that's, again, not a bad thing. G2 are the best team in the world at the moment, but it's nice to see that SK, especially in the early game, can compete.
They won in week 1 versus Schalke 04. That's why I lost it. And that is what I think is such an important matchup to highlight, because that will be one of your direct competitors for getting into playoffs. Just as when Rogue beat Vitality, it is an important indicator to see how far they could go. And it is, again, why this matchup specifically is so important.
Yeah, so one other player I would like to highlight here, if we're looking on the Rogue side of things, actually, because it feels like we've come into the season and been really excited about our rookies, our jungler and mid lane on this team. I think Prophet is playing very well in the top side of the map, and he's always been a little bit more of a quiet player for this team in particular, but something I saw out of him a lot was actually using his advantages in top lane to try and translate them to the rest of the map. So, you know, pushing up on a champion like Rumble that he's gone for a couple times now, and then actually trying to leave his lane, gank that mid lane, and help Larssen succeed. So as a veteran player, he is also trying to devote some of his time and resources to help his rookies succeed.
You bring up a good point, and when looking into the stats for SK Gaming, their gold difference at 20 has been minus 3,605 gold on average. And when you look at these games, you sometimes think when they kind of lose control, they keep losing control. One of the main people that is leading to that is Pirean, who's had so many isolated deaths as well, who tries to pick up a lot of slack for the team. So that's why that mid lane matchup becomes tricky for me for SK Gaming.
Yeah, and it's really surprising too, because when I think of Pirean, I think super consistent. He's never going to make the risky plays, right? He's like a big-time Lissandra player, right? That's very much more to play towards his team.
Which is not a bad thing, but
no, it's not a bad thing, but it's surprising, right, to see him dying, because he's usually not a player that happens to. He would play safe in that mid lane. He would not fall down. So if teams are able to find this as a potential point that they can try to exploit, that could be really bad news for SK, because he was the rock for them in the spring split.
SK also tend to draft a lot towards those team fights as well, which means that they have one goal, one main win condition. That's
fight.
Exactly. And when you're behind and you can't fight, they don't stop fighting. They just keep going, and that's kind of how they tend to either have very explosive games where they win or crash and burn, and that's a lot to do with that goal differential this early on. Pirean yesterday playing that Nico as well against G2. I would love to go on the record and say any other opponent that is not G2, SK win that game, straight up.
So they beat Rogue?
If they play like they did yesterday,
I've got them predicted to beat Rogue.
Yeah.
What are the main factors that have to go right for SK to beat Rogue convincingly today?
I actually think that the early game from SK I've been pretty impressed with, and especially, we talked about this before with Selfmade and the way that he plays the game. I'm finding it hard for...
What about that goal difference though.
Well, no, but I think that the way that he plays, it's like damage control, at least. Like,
Okay.
so to me, I think that you can kind of come, depending on the way that they draft this game, if they have the superior team fight, which they love to do, then I think that that's actually a way you can kind of bring it to Rogue, where I think that perhaps the inexperience from Rogue's carries, you might be able to exploit that.
Yeah, if I'm looking at this game, I think the biggest advantage that SK might actually have is down in the bottom lane. While Woolite and VandeR did play well yesterday with the Sona Taric, I think last week was not very convincing when they were camped. And I think that this is a very easy game for Selfmade to just put a target on that bottom lane, put Crownshot on a late game scaling AD carry that he loves to play. Like his Ezreal, his Jinx, they're all fantastic. Put him on something like that, put Dreams on a playmaker like the Thresh, send Selfmade to that bottom lane and camp these guys to death.
Yeah, good point, because at the end of the day, playing the Sona Taric lane, we're not going to say it's easy, but, you know, it's not the same as playing that pure mechanical 2 versus 2 matchup. And I think that's what we're going to end up seeing in this game. You guys, we do have a small delay on stage. League officials are investigating an issue of the players getting into the lobby. I feel kind of bad for them because it's really warm outside here in Berlin as well, so they have to keep in the zone. I saw that they were starting up the 1v1 lobby, which is always good. I can only imagine that that makes you calm, you know? You can get some of the nerves out if you play those 1v1 matches.
Yeah, so it's actually funny because, you know, I used to be a referee, right?
Yes.
So I would sit behind these players and see them doing everything. And you have a couple different kinds of players. You have, like, the players that are super in the zone, right? And they get into practice tool, they're like, I don't want to 1v1 you, right? And they're like practicing combos. Like I remember like people trying like insects in the practice tool and all that stuff, just trying to get loose on certain champions. But you also have the players, they're like, I want to 1v1, I want to get hyped, I want to get amped up, which are usually a little bit more fun because they get all that momentum going into the game and then have a blast.
Yeah, they have to channel it in that way. Since we have a little bit of time, let's look at the league maybe a bit more holistically, because not everything is going as expected, I would say, at all. And I think the middle of the table conversation is being formed and shaped as we speak. But I have the feeling that things could get really crazy, Foxdrop, especially if, you know, Vitality train keeps going off the rails, if Rogue keeps winning and picking up more wins, and all of a sudden is in that conversation, is getting quite interesting.
I think the only teams that I have pure confidence in towards the where they might finish at the end of the summer split has to be G2, Fnatic, and Origin. And I kind of think everything else is a little bit up in the air. You know, Splice always find a way to squeeze into the playoffs, and you know, Schalke. I think, didn't they lose like 8 games in a row, like 7-0?
Yeah, they started off hot and then straight down.
Like, I feel like
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of question marks about how the, you know, how it does go forward towards the end of the split. And for me, that's where those kind of 3 or 4 playoff spots are really up in the air to be grabbed.
Yeah, so I agree with you. The top 3 is very clear for me right now. The bottom 2, also unfortunately for me, Excel and Vitality look very obviously to be the 2 weakest teams in the league. And then it is that gap where I'm not really sure. And you take like a team like Rogue, right, that have those 2 wins that you're trying to try and slot in and figure out where they are. Right now, we don't have a large enough sample size of games, I don't feel like, to rank them higher. So I put Rogue as sort of like just out of playoffs contention at the moment. But a game like this against SK could be the thing to try and catapult them up in the standings and make a person like me have much more faith in them moving forward.
Yeah, as an update, League officials have determined that they need to switch to the backup server with the players. The players are transferring over right now, so we'll get an update of when we can get you guys into this game, and we will see. And when we have time to fill, we often talk about what we've seen of these teams so far. And it's so hard, because if you think back, as Foxdrop there rightly brings it up, at this point in time, last split, Misfits was doing great. Schalke was doing great, but it is all about the long-term development of these teams and not about how good you are in the first 3 games. So why do we give that pass to G2, Fnatic, and Origin and not to the other teams?
Because those teams have been consistently on the rise. You know, we saw them, like, you have a team like Fnatic and Origin, they both started slow last split, but then they were constantly growing, right? So we've seen them over the course of this year now be on the rise. So there's no reason to make us think that they're going to fall down immediately. So like that's where it becomes a little bit more obvious to me. And then you have a team like, let's say, Excel or Vitality, who both, you know, Excel struggled in Spring Split. That's obvious. They're still looking down. So like that is a lock-in for me. Vitality on the decline towards the second half of the split. Yes, they can pick themselves up, but the trend so far has been a period of about 2 or 3 months where it has not looked good. So it's that long-term, you know, either growth or decline that makes it much more clear which teams are going to be on the top or on the bottom at the end of the split.
See, it's a decent argument trending up, trending down. One thing
It's
you're
the stock
forgetting.
market.
One thing you're forgetting to mention, though, my friend, the Rift Rivals hangover. That's coming up in a few weeks.
Right.
And we're
You
going to
mean
have...
jet lag?
Right, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it.
But
Now,
hey.
we're going to have the top teams going over there when they come back.
I think you bring up a valid point. I mean, we've just had Perks on Euphoria talking about how it is tough. And we often see, well, how tough can it be? You're pro players playing a game for a living. Well, the answer is extremely tough because they put in so many more hours when they're practicing in scrims every day, when they're going through the team talks. Then they also play solo queue to keep up their level. Then they are being sent halfway across the world for these tournaments. I think it's a valid thing to think about. And with Rift Rivals and them flying over to LA, I mean, you could come back and see a very tired G2 or Fnatic. Or
You could. I would like to throw in the caveat that there is the break week now after Rift Rivals, so we won't be dealing with the jet lag excuses that we heard some of our teams bring up last year. So yes, I agree. Like the travel, of course, is very strenuous, especially for a team like G2 that already went to MSI and came back and started playing here almost immediately. But with the break week, it should be a little better.
Also, they think it's going to be a breeze because I had them on PGL last week, and it's like, oh, the EU teams are not going to drop a game at Rift Rivals. I'm excited to see how it all plays out because it never goes the way you think it's going to go.
A lot of players go over to LA for vacation, League players at least, so maybe our EU boys will do the same.
Yeah, we will see. Hyped, of course, that is just in a couple of weeks. But now to zoom back in on SK Gaming versus Rogue. We are arranging an interview, I believe, with someone in just a second. Yeah, before them, it sucks. I mean, you've been a referee. They can talk by this point, right?
Yeah, so before the game, if there's a delay or anything, there's no issues with talking. The only times when players will be told explicitly not to speak about the game or anything is when there's a pause during the game. But even if this were in the game and there were to be an extended pause, after a couple minutes, once the issue is sorted, usually the referees will give the players the go-ahead to talk about whatever they need to.
We'll see how it evolves. Right. I'm kind of running on fumes here as what to say about this particular match.
Ask me raw referee stories.
Yeah, more referee stories. Meta-wise, how are we thinking things are going to evolve? It's all about the team fights now, and I especially saw that yesterday in that Splice versus Schalke 04 game. And how many possibilities are there to carry from a single role?
Well, so there's a couple of interesting things. I like that you bring up team fights because we have more of a team fight meta, I feel like, but it's not the traditional, 40-minute team fight meta where your AD carry has 4 items, you have a big tank front line. It's all about mid-game team fights and using pressure to create advantageous fights, to be able to pick out where you want to be fighting on the map, which I think is very, very cool, especially when a lot of our solo lane champions are very high skill expression. It gives you a lot of different ways to approach some of these fights. As towards speaking for a specific role and how you might carry from one of those, I think it's interesting that our top 3 EU mid laners all come from our top 3 teams. You have Caps, you have Nukeduck, and you have Nemesis. Coincidence? I don't think so. Mid lane is the best role in the game.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Everyone says better jungle wins. It's all about that mid lane. If your mid laner sucks, it's very hard to run the map as a jungler. I think, speaking of the jungle, we're seeing a lot of these really early kind of impact champions, like the Elise. Gragas was brought up yesterday as well with Predator to spam ganking.
Jarvan too.
There you go. So it's a lot of action in that early game.
Yeah, we'll see. We do have an interview standing by. It is Laure and Rogue's performance coach.
Thank you, Sjokz. Indeed, sports performance coach Ismael is with me today. Thank you for joining me. So tell me about your work, because we never hear about teams stuff per se. So what do you do?
Yeah, thank you. Well, basically, what I do is try to provide a better environment for the players. So it is very important for the players to develop, but it depends on where they are. So they are very young, and at the same time, they are having this type of pressure, playing in front of so many people. So as well, their psychological well-being is very important.
I get that you weren't always working with esports athletes. Yeah. So how different is it from what you used to do before that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was working a lot with swimmers and football players, and it is very similar. At the highest level, of course, you have better structure, multidisciplinary people working behind the players, and it is very similar for esports, but right now we don't have the resources right now, so that's why it's almost the same.
I'm always interested in knowing more about this because it's easy to see a team win. We see it with G2, you have the good momentum, but it's something else when you have to switch a mindset for a player. So how do you work around that?
Well, again, like I think it depends on the environment where the players are. Like for example, in G2, like you can tell like they're having really good time. They're like friends, and there are some other teams that they cannot keep winning or they keep losing maybe because of that environment where they are. So it's come from the team perspective and as well from the individual perspective. And from there, you start building those fundamentals.
Awesome. So now you keep looking at the matchup as we have today.
Yeah.
If you were to give an advice to the players, what would it be?
Well, the advice that I gave them is like, it doesn't matter any outcome. Like the most important thing is to focus what we know, the strengths that we have, and just work as a team, basically.
Well, thank you very much for your insights and joining me before the game. Now back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Laure and Ismael. Always good to hear, I feel like, from the psychological coach. I think we're very unique in that when you come into esports, right? When you come up in football, you're playing in middle school, you're playing in high school, you're playing in university. But here it's like you go from at home flaming kids on your computer to like big stage. And there's no middle ground. You're not really prepared for that. So I think it's such an important part. But more important is the game in front of us, Froskurinn. It is time. The dramatic music is telling me to wrap it up. It's SK Gaming versus Rogue. Go!
So the first thing that I really want to pay attention to is what SK Gaming are going to do in this draft. Now, looking back at their previous drafts, only 3 games played in the LEC, they actually have a really high priority on Nico. They've played 2 of the 3 times that Nico has appeared. The other time was by G2. And they were given opportunities to priority pick things like Aurelia, and they would instead grab things like Sejuani. So how SK Gaming draft is actually really different than what we've seen the trends of the rest of the LEC teams doing.
We'll see how that adjusts now. In the previous game, we did not see Sona rear her head. This time around, we will not again, this time because it is banned away. The Nico also going to follow, so Rogue clearly very aware. You mentioned those 2 picks, the Sejuani and the Nico, the oddities in the draft, both taken off the board.
But in the same sense that we kind of called out Excel for the fact that Sona just kind of slipped away from them, and maybe it's a trend that Excel don't play the Sona, there's very clear weaknesses that you can punish for SK in the drafting. The fact that they're banning Aurelia from blue side, the fact that they were given access against Sjokz to pick Aurelia and they still gave it away, it's really curious, and it might turn into a bigger problem where maybe they don't feel comfortable either playing the champion or flexing the champion, or maybe their priority list is just that much different than any other LEC team. But I think there's exploitation there. Ryze is the other big one. They've been given opportunities to grab Ryze, even second rotation from red side, and SK Gaming will give it away.
Interesting. Now, however, we see the hover. I think this is the standard first pick. The most standard first pick in our league. It is Sylas. Very frequently allowed to go through in the draft, and we've seen kind of up and down performances. Obviously, the best Sylases make the champion look very nerf-worthy, but the rest do seem to struggle to find those greater impacts, and the cat is, of course, left up and available.
But see, this is what happens when you're forced to ban from blue side things like the Aurelia and the Ryze, because maybe you don't feel comfortable flex picking them, so you don't want the priority pick, then you leave open power picks like the Yuumi. Now, Yuumi, very hit-miss in the LEC so far. It's kind of clear whether you're gut-checking. Do you have enough practice on this champion? Are you prepared to do this?
However, Ezreal and Yuumi, I feel like is one of my favorite pairings. There's so much safety in that lane. Catboy, that's what it's now called. For the Catboy lane, and very comfortable in both these champions. Ezreal strong before first back, Yuumi very strong after first back, so I see a lot of synergy there.
Yeah, we'll touch more on kind of the mechanics of how Yuumi works with Ezreal once we see him in the lane phase. I love Yuumi because I feel like whatever ADC she's paired with, it completely changes how the matchup works and how she plays around the opposing matchup and with her ally ADC. But Sivir Nautilus, great response. Nautilus is one of those champions that just hard counters Yuumi. I know that we've seen the Poppy also screw her over before, but usually you want hard engage. So if any of those hooks do connect with the Yuumi or the ADC, that's when things become really devastating.
And especially the Nautilus in the hands of Dreams as well. Once again, this is one of the supports that we know to be a big playmaker, to be the guy to get action kicked off. So you know that if VandeR steps a little too far forward where he can't just leap back to that Ezreal, he's going to run into a lot of problems. But the Renekton now coming in as well for Prophet, one of my favorite champions to see Prophet alongside that Rumble. And I want to see what the matchup hit's going to be picked into is on the opposite side. Will they match it with the Sylas? How will SK Gaming approach this?
And I feel like it's now just about kind of sculpting the perfect matchup for Prophet. I expected something like the Kennen ban. Nico's already taken away, so you have 2 ranged top laners, kind of Jace is the last one standing, where they can continue to pinch that top lane pool and just say, we own the top lane. The top side of the map is ours because we have such a powerful pick like Renekton, and we're going to take away anything that you might have in the bag of tricks to deal with this champion.
And I love it because anytime you take away, let's say, the Kennons and the Jaces, it means that you have to pick something melee to go toe-to-toe with the Renekton. And those lanes are always so hype.
And on SK Gaming's side, they're like, quick, take away every jungler that can dive, get rid of the AP junglers. We don't want to deal with the Elise because we know how devastating Renekton can be. So we'll see if SK Gaming kind of take the same route that Splyce did, where they say, okay, we see the Renekton, we don't have Nico, we don't have Kennen, we don't have Jace. What else can we put up there? Are we going to try to go toe-to-toe with this pick, or are we going to play weak side, maybe grab a more self-sufficient top lane or something like well, I don't think Poppy here, but a tank.
Definitely an option, of course. The Rek'Sai now locked in as well for Inspired's most successful pick thus far. And of course, another champion that has a decent amount of dive threat at level 6, has the ability to reset the tower aggro. At least, of course, having it at level 3 does mean she's a bit more of a threat.
Grabbing Rek'Sai is important here because if they choose to go, I was going to say either a Rumble or a Vladimir, it's now a double AP composition coming out of SK Gaming. And so by taking away Rek'Sai, you take one of the primary AD junglers out. So it almost forces Selfmade to go for either a Vi or a Larssen. He was looking for an AD jungler, and the Vi is where he landed.
Started in the LCL, now we're here. Vi coming through. Excited to see what Selfmade can do on the champion. Of course, very telegraphed what she wants to do. How to find out how well it can be executed. And now the debate for Larssen's pick. Of course, that comfort pick Azir has been taken off the board. Will have to show us something different this time around. And potentially another sustained damage threat in the form of the Cassio will now be locked in as well.
So you have a lot of poke and a lot of protection for that poke. I really like in team fights how Cassio can line up with ADCs because she just basically has this giant threat in this zone around her, although they haven't swapped yet. I have seen Renekton play
20 seconds, 20 seconds. Once again, what league are we in? The LEC, not the LPL. Don't be not here. We'll give it 14 seconds, Frosk, and you can tell me I'm wrong if they swap, but for now, we can talk about jungle or bot lane instead while we wait for the timer.
And I feel like for SK Gaming, it's about your 2v2, especially post-level 6 in that mid lane. And then, you're okay, he stayed mid lane. And then for Rogue, it's about getting out of lane phase. Their power post-lane phase, especially because they have a champion like Yuumi and Ezreal, who do really well once they're grouped up and once they're on 1 to 2 items. That's their big window that they want to attack this map.
And also for Rogue, it's kind of about setting expectations for the team. Once again, they are 2-1, already up to a much better start than they had in the previous season. However, they've beaten the 2 currently weakest teams in our league, in Excel and Vitality. Can they show us more against SK Gaming, a no-doubt playoff contender as this roster just continues to ramp up? And SK, can they show us dominance through individual ability in this game? That is the big question. Of course, Inspired on your screen, looking comfortable, looking confident. The audience ready to get into game. Let's go. It's SK versus Rogue. Go Selfmade. Selfmade fans out in force. I'm loving it. We'll see what he can do on the Vi.
I feel like there's like 2 types of people. There's like woo girls and there's ow guys. And that's where the crowd really falls.
We'll find out. You can figure out what you are. We'll run it. You know, we had the 4 houses before. You could be the council or the faceless. Now you can be a woo girl or an ow guy. Well, it's the next event. It's confirmed. I've got the authority to say that. Sure, why not? Here we are. It's SK Gaming versus Rogue as we graciously get back on topic. See how we did that? That's a casting move.
So nice heart advance. I want to quickly touch in on Woolite and VandeR down here on the Ezreal and the Yuumi. Thank you, observers. So this is going to be, what, Catboy? Catboy is what we're going with. So how Yuumi and Ezreal are going to gain priority and pressure into this lane is clearly through their poke. If you haven't played against Yuumi, we've seen a couple times the LEC, she's really dependent on where her ADC's positioning is. She throws out a little Q, it tags you. Now just imagine that layered with a bunch of Ezreal Qs and how obnoxious it can be. But of course, if they lose control of the wave priority, which is why it's so important that Ezreal and Yuumi don't need to leash for their jungler, they need to get here first, because if they lose control of the wave, then you have all of those minions standing in front of you to block the Q. So you shouldn't ever see an Ezreal and a Yuumi leash for their jungler. They should always walk to the lane first. And I also like the response then from Crownshot and Dreams to say, well, you're not getting the shove in. I've got the W on the Sivir, and we are forcing this one in.
So something that I absolutely love here that we've already seen in this lane is that if you played against Yuumi and solo queue, you know this, that the Q is essentially impossible to dodge. There's really nothing you can do against it. But what Dreams does is he walks alongside Crownshot to make sure that he is the person taking damage. He has extra pots in this lane rather than letting Crownshot. See, he's trying to stand in front of it. Didn't work out that time. Trying to block up those Qs and stop his AD carry from getting slowly chipped away at.
It's actually fun. If you guys play Cho'Gath at home, one of the best things to do is because Cho'Gath's model is so massive, it's just stand on your ADC and make it really hard for the enemy team to click him. You don't actually need to zone control. You just need to be super obnoxious. Also, if you're playing a tank and you have like Nautilus shields, sometimes you'll see Nautilus players, if they have the shield available, they'll walk up to the creeps that the enemy actually wants to last hit, and they'll stand on the creeps, and they'll deny them the creep by taking the auto attack and then proccing their shield.
There's an entire Donkey video about that Hecarim strategy where you just stand on top of the creeps.
It's not about beating your opponents by killing them, it's about tilting them off the face of the planet.
It's about sending a message, folks. Wins, LP, who cares? Of course, both these teams probably interested in finding a win. However, SK still 1-2. Rogue has the better record right now, despite the perception that SK might be the stronger team. For now, things are going okay in the bot lane. We saw yesterday, Yuumi lane's level 1, quite weak. The first back stronger for Yuumi, wants a few points in that queue before she can really start to threaten, before that poke becomes kind of unbearable to deal with. So for now, Sivir Nautilus, I think no surprise to see them have the wave pressure. However, Inspired will reveal himself by taking the Scryer's Bloom there rather than the Blast Cone, and is backing off.
And you can see that there's a lot of priority through Larssen and Profit there, the fact that they're so far in their lanes. And Inspired by having a pick like a Rek'Sai, who's such a control-oriented jungler, did a good job just being like, I've got my vision down here, complete control of the bottom side of the river. I took the Scryer's Bloom, like everyone's safe, just play it out, boys. Farm, be aggressive if you want. No ganks coming.
And you talked about the handshake moment last game where it's like, all right, we're going to get to 3 items, and then we're going to fight. Like, all right. Well, for me, the handshake moment in this game is the junglers. Of course, Rek'Sai versus Vi. Vi champion we haven't seen in a long time. 2015 Summer Sjokz was the last person to play it in the EU LCS at the time, now the LEC. And I'm curious what Selfmade does, what innovation he'll show us. You know, it was the Q Flash was like the revolutionary thing back when people were discovering biomechanics. I don't know if anything has been added since, but we'll get to find out.
I don't think he gets much innovation when he doesn't have priority in his lanes and he loses his Scuttle Crab.
You're a Debbie Downer. All right.
I mean, the reality is Selfmade's like, I've got one goal. It's just to kind of like stabilize things, play when they're strong. So you can see that now that Pirean has push, he's like, maybe I can cheese in and get these Raptors, but I'm looking for level 6.
It's a good look. Has power. The AoE there. Little conal shotgun blows there. And for me, level 6 in this lane has to feel pretty uncomfortable for Larssen, because not only do you have a Sylas who's going to want to leap on top of you, you have a Sylas who's going to steal your ult, and if you try to ult him and he ults you in response, what happens? Froskurinn.
You die.
The greatest staring contest of all time. Who dies?
I want to see it now. 2 Cassiopeia ults at once. Imagine they would just both get locked up.
It's such a long cast animation, and you don't notice it when you're not playing on LAN, because you have ping, you have a connection, turns out. But when you're on like 0 ping server environment, it's a long quarter of a second.
Tuning back into that bot lane because the first back has now come through, and not only that, but Woolite went for the Sheen. I'll hold it though. He's okay. He's okay.
Oh, that's fine.
He's okay.
No kill pressure yet. Still level 5, but I like that we're focusing on the bot lane, as you mentioned. Frostfang coming in. And interestingly enough, there's a support in the mid lane. Now that is a grounded Sylas. Will dash away, but Inspired. Posturing, ready, threatening here in Dreams. Functioning as a second jungler as he just covers in the mid lane here.
Making sure that he can get this wave in and it's not frozen.
Spider knots away.
As I say that.
Larssen. That felt like not the right place to back. I'm going to be honest.
He's got the cannon and his creeps. That's a feel bad for Pirean. He does not want to be there.
Difficult. And of course on the bottom side of the map, not a whole ton of kill pressure at this stage for this bottom side, unless Crownshot really overextends. So Dream's not giving up too much to roam there, but now...
Triple man gank!
Pirean. He doesn't know it yet, but this Cassio ult's going to need to be nutty if they commit for this.
And a reminder, like Dreams pulled into that lane to try to give Pirean something so he could get that wave shoved out, but the cannon creep Larssen just pulled it into his creep wave, got it to hold there, and then they set up by sending Renekton and Rek'Sai to try to gank him. So good heads up by Pirean to be like, probably in danger here.
Absolutely. And one thing that I like, we talk a lot about the bottom side, Selfmade now here as well, could see a potential gank Woolite not stepping forward, attempted to do so. The hook does land onto Yuumi. That's going to be disastrous. Trying to burst her down. Don't quite get the timing right.
Classic bait right there. Come on, Yuumi's just going to reconnect. The hook can't hit her unless you have hard CC that you can chain and instantly kill her. Has to hit Woolite.
They wanted to follow up. They wanted the Vi there to just come in, but level 6 now comes in for Selfmade. Maybe they look for the follow-up here. Of course, the Honey Fruit going to heal back up on the bottom side, keep the pressure going. Ezreal, no TP available this time around.
But going back to it, the fact that Woolite went for the Sheen as opposed to the Tier, we see more and more Ezreals doing this, but he's actually a terror against Sivir. So they actually needed Selfmade to come down there to look for aggressive plays like that, because just in the 2v2, Ezreal and Yuumi will start winning it very hard, at least in terms of the poke damage.
And interesting as well, of course, Renekton in general has a lot of healing in the kit, as well as not requiring a secondary resource, so we can see Prophet not opting to back as much, but instead continuously putting down a little bit of lane pressure and then moving into that mid lane. So ready to punish Pirean. Pirean is yet to go down despite the resources put against him. Still has gone down in CS. 15 discrepancy there, but despite all of that, the bot lane pressure that's been being built now results in Selfmade grabbing an early Infernal. Very strong for a Vladimir, Sylas, Sivir composition. Prophet, though, now looking for the ult. Sacre just going to walk away, taking his time. We'll get the empowered heal here. Prophet not going to connect on the Cold of Meek either, but instantly into the mid lane. Point and click them down. A bit of assault and battery to get us started. Dream's going to make it out, but a quick kill over to the side of SK. Maybe not. Heal now coming in. Crownshot going to body block. Well played to stop it. Crownshot now stepping forward. Still fearless. Moving into the wood. They're going to destroy him. The cat does nothing. Catboy dies.
Oh, they just didn't have enough in the tank right there. The immediate turnaround from Nautilus. Crownshot plants his feet, comes in with the TP, says, not today.
And And I love that VandeR and Woolite are trying to make plays, but Crownshot and Dreams are just outplaying in that exchange.
And just so aggressive. You know, maybe that's completely different if Yuumi has access to her ultimate, but still level 5, Ezreal and Yuumi. And without the root as well as the burst damage from the true shot, they just way overextend, punished by the TP from Sivir.
Once again, League so very often in game of inches that Nautilus health bar so incredibly low, but God, they're gonna watch that one back, you know, and regret it, knowing that some minor mistake could have changed everything in their favor.
But this is a massive gold discrepancy now, and this all started off, it was like the Infernal into this mid lane gank, and now the 2v2 kills in the bottom. Like, SK just sprinted ahead of Rogue. Absolute disaster in multiple lanes and multiple points on this map.
Oh, and you look at that play, and we'll see if we get the look at the bottom one as well. I love the aggression, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so they think that they just catch Dreams out, they force the flash, and Woolet's like, I've got the burst damage, I can do it. Unfortunately, doesn't connect, the TP just in time. Good spell shield use from Crownshot, and then again, plants his feet, hits them both with a boomerang, and then Dreams turns around.
Brutal. The level 6 is coming in so clutch there from the side of SK, and when we looked at this game, Froskurinn, and we were talking about it while we were in that delay, and you were talking to me a lot about teamfights, because Rogue loved to teamfight and they excel in teamfights, and SK loved to teamfight and excel in teamfights. Now, that was one way you said this game could go. There was another way, too.
The mentality was like, you come in, you look at Selfmade, you're like, this guy is so explosive in the early game, he can just completely destroy teams before 10 minutes in the game. We're now 10 minutes here, I'll hold it.
Hook's gonna land, Boomerang Blade goes in. And things not getting easier here on the bottom side.
Or Selfmade doesn't make the impact and get to team fight phase, and both teams are exactly where they want to be, and this is where Rogue really excels in those team fights. But
you can see what side of the coin we ended up on, and while Selfmade has had a kill so far, also the bottom lane. So, SK, we wanted to know individual advantages. How big would they be? Well, right now, very big, as Woolite and VandeR overextended on that bottom side.
What's so punishing right now is now that Sivir has access to the pickaxe as well as the Caulfield's hammer, her ability to just like hard shove the lane and push the wave for free, like she's going to kill all of those minions, means that this Sheen pickup from Ezreal and the poke damage from Yuumi is just never going to connect. Sivir doesn't have to lane against them. She's just going to hard push and then look for how she can chip away with the boomerang bang, and then it leaves Nautilus to be unlocked. Like, those two kills and having that item breakpoint completely changes the dynamic where Woolite and VandeR could have had opportunities to fight back in this lane. Now they don't.
So incredibly difficult. And then as well, we see Inspired was kind of taking control of a lot of the jungle earlier on, now falling a little bit behind. Opted for the Chilling Smite. A little bit stronger ganks, a little bit more additional damage out into these short exchanges, but with the Challenging Smite on the opposite side, with Selfmade building up an XP advantage, things are only going to get harder in that 1v1 matchup. Ezreal coming over, but it is too little too late, and now SK firmly in control of this game. 2K up 11 minutes in, they have the Infernal, they have the Herald, and it is now on Rogue to try and survive.
And now they've lane swapped, so they've got an initial advantage here, and they're just trying to get Sacre into a free farm lane on this Vladimir. He did a good job. He was against the likes of the press the attack Renekton. He's like, there's no way you can dive me. I've got the pool. I'm going to try to scale up alongside you into a side lane. And they're very quickly now moving around Crownshot, who has his first completed item, and just trying to siege up these structures and get as many plates as possible. If you can springboard this Sivir ahead of the clock, where she's running around with Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge, you know, way before 20 minutes, these 5v5s are so far heavy in SK's favor.
And we saw it in the previous game with Splice, right? We saw what happened when Kobbe was able to continuously grab plates in every single lane. The same thing is now happening for Crownshot. 12 minutes of the game, he's already got 1 item and boots 2. And this lane has been a question. Not a lot happening. You see a lot of these continuous aggressive trades back and forth, but as more CDR goes into the pocket of Vladimir, it only gets harder for Renekton. There's just so much healing in this lane. Prophet dashing in and out as quickly as he can.
The more that I think about it, the more that I actually really love that play of giving the plates, like the gold to Sivir. Because you could have picked anywhere. You could have given it to the Vladimir. But the thing about Ezreal is that it's so hard to put Ezreal far enough down that he doesn't make a huge impact in the mid game no matter what, because his items are so cheap and he hits for so hard. And it's really hard to stop him from doing damage because of his safety with his poke. By giving it to Sivir, you're making sure that you're never in a deficit in terms of your AD carry not being strong when the enemy ADC is really strong.
Oh. And at least now we can see, as the observers are highlighting, that some plates are going back. But right now, this Ezreal Yuumi lane, this terror that when you get a lead is just supposed to be so impossible to lane against, has not had that effectiveness. And another Drake going down, second Infernal. The Dragon RNG very much favoring SK in this early game.
Yeah, this game is wildly getting out of Rogue's control right now.
Clearing the waves, and I wonder what they're going to do with this bottom lane, how exactly they're going to use this, and more importantly, what the cat is going to do. For now, VandeR has been that. Sometimes Yuumi feels so OP, and sometimes she feels like kind of you just have 50% of a champion on your team, and this is one of those 50% of a champion games thus far.
She works really well with champions like Renekton and Rek'Sai because of their ability to get into backlines, and then if you think about a Yuumi ult that's like flying around everywhere and just causing havoc for everyone. But Rogue need to make sure that they can get to that point at not too much of a deficit so that Rek'Sai and Renekton actually have the tanky stats or the damage that if they get into a backline, it means something, and that they're tanky enough to survive getting back there. Otherwise, yeah, Yuumi means nothing.
And of course, the thing that we always talk about with Ezreal is inevitably, most of you know it all, but we'll say it once again, is the 2-item power spike, right? This is the point where Ezreal is, relative to every other champion, incredibly strong. Now, the difficult part is that Crownshot gets to his 3-item power spike before Ezreal gets that tier fully stacked. Remember, the tier was delayed because of the Sheen start, and now gonna have to see how it works out. Crownshot committing for a little bit more. Inspired is here, however. Crownshot now in trouble. The flash to knock up the Halo Blades. A lot of immediate damage coming out, but there's the Zanya. Selfmade here as well. The flash out to safety. The whole team is here. Prophet going to the backside. Desperately wants to get something, but he's just not quite fast enough. There it is. Cole the Meek takes down Crownshot. Larssen stepping forward. Rogue turning this on its head and hits it with the Vladimir onto the backside. Multiple members getting knocked out. Sacre, can he get enough? Damage is there. The cat is healing everybody up. He needs to make it on safety. Just gets out with his life. A beautiful fight for Rogue.
And just to repeat what Perk said about Crownshot and Dreams, he said the only negative about them is they try too hard sometimes. They tried to force that play. They didn't have perfect information about where Inspired was, and you immediately see the snapshot from Rogue. They completely turned this game.
In this Alien replay, everything looks like it's starting out, but we know from the spectator perspective that Inspired is there in the brush. Yes, beautiful use of the stopwatch to buy a bit of time, but Rogue so confident in this fight.
And then everyone files in. Good job from Prophet to get the flash to make sure that he can get into that backline to find Crownshot, and then it's 1, 2, 3. Good night, Sivir. Huge shutdown bonus onto Renekton. And again, Yuumi empowers bruisers so well. Now that this Renekton has the shutdown bonus, it also makes Yuumi that much stronger because she has someone to tag onto in these fights.
And for that fight, it felt like the first time we really got to see VandeR have a high value. Crownshot, though, has to step... No way! Way too greedy. Crownshot so close to getting something done there, but gets taken out in the end.
And now you're starting to see the power of Catboy. Again, that pick was so important up there.
And let me be clear here. Once that Iceborne Gauntlet is finished, you cannot run away from this duo. So if they are ahead or if they are in an advantage situation, you will not escape.
There's also a lot of greed from Crownshot on Sivir. We talked about in the previous game kind of reactive wave clear versus proactive wave clear. Sivir doesn't have, you know, an arcane shift like Ezreal. She can clear waves really well, but it's super dangerous for her to walk that far up into a lane because she's just got her spell shield and her ult, but she still needs to get like a head start away from you.
It's only gonna get harder from here. Things starting to look a lot better for Rogue. Once again, still 2K gold deficit, 1 tower to 0. Double Infernal, but Infernal not going to amount to too much yet. It's just 16 minutes in the game. We'll get scarier as we move forward. And the good news for SK, Vladimir continuing to scale up.
They're trying again.
Oh, Woolite caught out and all on his lonesome. The knockup is there. They're not going to overcommit, however. They see Inspired zooming in with the cat on his back. Good bit of damage. Crownshot now in trouble, though. The spell shield is there. Tries to buy a bit more time. Needs to get away before the Rek'Sai ult comes out. And Crownshot will take down Inspired. Rek'Sai ult not going to get used there in the end.
Yeah, and there's no Ezreal ultimate available there for Woolite, just about to come off of cooldown, so he can't look for the fadeaway return.
Ooh. And now this is where things get spicy. Early game, we saw that first play go south. We saw the first successful gank from Selfmade. We thought, it's a done deal. Probably not going to be a game you come back in. But VandeR jumping around in these team fights. Some of these plays mean the Rogue are coming back, but that one, they can't afford to make more mistakes like that. Can't afford to overextend. Crownshot was the tasty bait this time around. Last time Woolite was the tasty bait. This time it's Crownshot, and these 80 carries, people need to calm down.
The game's also been stalled out to a nice point for Rogue, where they did get their Ezreal into where he's very strong. So again, SK, they tried to snowball this Sivir over the weak point to make sure that she was just as strong when Ezreal was. They kind of fumbled it a bit here on their last 2 plays. But with this mid tower still being up, it stalls out the game, and I expect SK to stop playing towards these side lanes and to try to figure out how to crack this structure here.
Incredibly difficult to do. Cassie, of course, always terrifying. Her herself does a lot of damage. If you ever get grounded, very easy opportunity for to find the Rek'Sai or cat follow-up. So, another dragon, this time Mountain. Once again, very high dragon value this time around. Looks like SK are ready to contest. This, folks, is our arena. That dragon, though, getting cut down incredibly quickly. Once again, if you get hit there, and the team is willing to commit on you, you will die. You cannot escape from a Yuumi Ezreal duo.
I really like that call from SK to say they've got first priority on Mountain Dragon. Let them have it. Let's see what we can get done by inside track to this mid lane tower. That said, a lot of respect to Rogue. They're like, they can probably snap engage since everyone's here, so we can't just hard force this one.
And once again, remember that there is a Vladimir scaling up on the top side of the map. You still have a Sylas. You have a ton of AP pressure in these team fights and plenty of good ultimates to steal away as well, along with the Sivir. So while, yes, we kind of expect these explosive SK early games, they still have a lot of outs in the scaling department. Is the pressure on Rogue to get some kind of huge advantage here?
This is a window where they are very strong. Renekton, one of those champions that, because of how his ultimate works, he can have a lot of kind of like superfluous tanky stats, as well as do a ton of damage with his current itemization on top of 2-item power spike Ezreal. So their composition because of their champions is good now. Whereas you talk about, you know, Vladimir and Sivir, how they outscale, and especially as a duo are so devastating. A Hemoplague with a W that's just like slathered all over that. Hurts real bad.
Slathered. That's all right, I'll take it. For now, Crownshot getting poked away by a cat. I honestly don't know how to feel about this champion thematically. I love the kit, and I love that it's a cat, but there's just something about it that like offends me on a deep personal level. Just getting hit in the face by a cat over and over again. Like, do you not see me? I'm like the escaped mage of Demacia. I'm a monster. Yeah, you're a cat.
It's kind of like in the Captain Marvel movie where the cat's like the really terrifying alien.
Yeah.
Super cute.
Yeah, it just feels a little unfair.
It hasn't worked out, though.
It hasn't worked out yet. That was an ultimate. There you go. All right. We'll check in. 20 minutes of the game. Yeah, that's right. Ezreal. Woo! Global pressure.
I just like to note that you are a woo girl.
I am a woo girl. Don't take it away from me. Prophet, though, might be getting some woos here in a second if he finds a flank. Not going to walk face first into Dreams, though, giving the Nautilus that kind of respect. And you can tell that both teams are respecting the potential from the other enemy team to get a fight started. Selfmade sees that guy, and he's still going to hide.
He's looking for his perfect moment. But the thing is it feels better for SK at this point if the game does slow down. Because again, we talked about Sivir and Vladimir and the fact that they're just kind of getting this free farm, whereas I feel like Rogue really needs to be pushing the envelope a bit more here. Or we're just going to slowly lose our towers. This feels bad.
All right, well, SK slowly taking control of the game. We've got Cassio pushing on the top side, the only pressure point on the map, now having Inspired there as well. Hook will come through, of course, canceled out by the input buffer on the Ezreal. Now the flash forward. Woolite going to be in trouble. We'll get the flash as well. Of course, CC will not stop. Oh my God, gets him again! Here we go! Point and click, assault, and battery. That's going to be all it is. You know, when they say there's more than one way to skin a cat, it never quite made sense till right in that moment.
And perfectly on time is the incoming creep wave, is they're not going to get just one tower, not just going to get just the double kill, but 2 of those mid lane towers.
Well, we said it was going to slow down. We were wrong. Instantly, SK explode onto the map. 6K gold lead, double Infernal, Vladimir scaling. They don't need to wait for it. They're here to kill people.
It frankly shouldn't be that easy just to walk it down into the mid lane, but something that Rogue do struggle with is kind of like the easy wave clear. You know, they don't have the Sivir. They have an Ezreal and they have a Cassiopeia. They need to be right on the wave to force it all out.
And you can see, this is...
They just don't respect
This is such a Nautilus montage.
the engage potential here from these 2 champions. And here comes Selfmade.
One more. And the thing is, this is fantastic play, obviously, from SK here, but we've all learned that as the Yuumi AD carry, you need to step forward to make sure the Q hits. But it's not like Dreams doesn't know that too, right? So every time you throw the Q, he knows that you're going to try to step forward to get it to hit. And I feel like Dreams just read the situation flawlessly there. And the second Woolite steps out from behind that tower, that structure, instantly goes down.
And remember that springboard about Sivir? That's 2 items Ezreal, 3 items Sivir. We want a team fight. Here we go.
Maybe caught out here, instantly deleted. Larssen does a lot of damage in that exchange. But Crownshot. Those bouncy blades come through a lot of health bars.
And look at the confidence. SK just have 3 members. Meanwhile, Vladimir on that inhib takes down the tower.
And it feels like Rogue thought they were playing one kind of game, and SK have very quickly relieved them of that idea, as SK are just destroying across the map. There's these little instances. Yes, they got a single kill, but they lost an inhib tower. Not a worthwhile trade, and now SK pretty much are going to have pressure in every single lane.
I mean, in that type of situation, it's Dreams makes a mistake because he's out of position. Rogue do manage to get a catch, but you can see how clear the discrepancy is. The only fortunate thing for them is that Sivir didn't have like hard CC to force them to fight her, because she was just annihilating.
I mean, their saving grace is that their jungler is Rek'Sai and not Sejuani at this point, so Sylas can't steal that ult away.
Take another look at the pick. This is the wrong side of town. He's just way too far forward away from his team.
And that's, of course, the thing you gotta love about Yuumi. The follow-up is very real. Second someone gets a pick or tries to jump on you, you can instantly try and turn that fight. People really underestimate the sheer amount of healing and disengage/engage potential that Yuumi has. Here we are, Froskurinn. The Mountain of Gold, telling us a very interesting story about the calm game up until that bot lane play. That first hump, that's the big aggressive engage from the cat and the boy. And now, things are very, very heavily in SK's favor. I think Rogue can do it still with the scaling of Cassio. There is an option, but at this point you're relying on Rogue to out-execute rather than out-comp.
I really like that word, and that means that all eyes are on guys like Woolite and then Prophet. And I'm curious how Prophet's going to try to play this out. If he wants to go towards the side lane, it feels bad. Every time we look at Vladimir versus Renekton at this point in the game, it feels like Renekton is just cannot hold on into these side lanes. So you're then looking at, you know, either miracle flanks or super perfect sculpted team fights. Maybe SK walk up to a Baron and Woolite's able to layer the poke and they stall it out long enough. But I like the fact that you said out-execute.
That's a difficult thing to ask, of course, against SK. A lot of incredibly competent individual players. Yes, sometimes they make mistakes, but they're always willing to go for those big moments. Now we have to see if the Baron can be taken away. Getting lower. This could be a defining moment for Rogue. Can they find a way back to the game? But the pullback from SK, willing to back off, not willing to risk the 50-50, just hoping to get that one for free. Now Rogue, however, walking into this choke point could be disastrous. Eyes on the Yuumi, though. Both home members locked up. Selfmade, can he get out? Is that going to be enough? Selfmade now set to fall. GA now being procced. Look at the backside of the fight. Woolite has gone down. Crownshot has taken out the enemy carry. All eyes on Prophet and Larssen to get out of here. But SK in absolute control. Selfmade, ultimate already used, will not be able to continue the fight, but Crownshot going unchecked was disastrous in that fight.
Yeah, a split fight, and the fact that Inspire's dead means that there's no smite. So if Rogue want to put up any sort of fight here, they'd have to do it with their faces and force them off this Baron.
So, 6K, 4K, getting lower. Where's the Yuumi going to go? Sacre body blocking. Larssen stepping forward. VandeR, 1100 health. They don't have any way to get into the pit. Taking a risk there, but SK will walk away. Not going to be scared of the 3 members. Securing the Baron and an 8K gold lead. Huge showing of dominance from SK.
And this should all give them a huge showing of confidence here. So again, a kind of a weird fight. The fact that they're really not respecting how much damage and how much control Yuumi can output, but the fact that Crownshot is able to
2v1.
Well, 2v2, because Dreams was over
stunned.
there. But 2v1, both the Cassiopeia and the Ezreal was kind of the defining factor.
The Crownshot is scary. Perfect turn back on the Cassio ult to dodge. Dreams, unfortunately, were not able to turn around and forcing the Zhonya's out. So, and it feels like if Larssen hadn't used the Zhonya's there, may have bought enough time for Wool to survive, but just incredibly well played by Crownshot. I do feel like we are approaching a Crownshot moment, though, where he is feeling so confident after that last play that he might do something crazy here. You can see Inspired waiting for that moment.
He doesn't have flash. He can't do anything crazy. What's he gonna do?
I never thought a flash deficiency would be a good thing. Inspired, oh god, that's a ton of damage. Ezreal comes in. Crownshot gonna take a little bit of extra mana from it, and Larssen still confident enough to step forward here. You've got Selfmade Split pushing on the side. Vladimir going to back off.
He's got TP.
3 items now for the Vladimir. Death Cap, Proto Belt, as well as the Zhonya's, and not a lot of ammo on the opposite side. Rogue trying to find an opportunity to force an engage here.
That's the TP.
Crownshot now in trouble. Keep your eyes on the Sivir. How much damage can Crownshot get out? Prophet is now turning back. This could be disastrous. Larssen gonna get taken out, but no, the stun lands. Crownshot's gonna get taken down. No! He manages to live. I cannot believe it. Vladimir is there for the double kill. What a turn for SK. It was all eyes on Crownshot, but it was not enough to take him down. A massive quadra in favor of Sacre. What a fight.
And that is going to be the fight that ends the game right there. SK saw their moment. They springboarded this Sivir ahead of the Ezreal, and they ran it over Rogue.
Oh man, the momentum in SK's favor, now tying Rogue up at 2-2. What a showing from this SK team.
Big smiles on the faces of Crownshot and Dreams right there as they talk over that back half of the game, and you have to feel good. That felt like the perfect Sivir game.
Absolutely. Wait, I won't nitpick. It's a glorious moment for SK Gaming. They've taken down Rogue, they've tied them up in the standings. Things are looking good for this team overall. Playing to their win conditions, finding that opportunity, building a gold lead in an early game that they maybe shouldn't have been able to, and then running over in team fights. That's the SK we know and love. That's the SK we saw last season, and I love that they're giving us that flavor again, building up those leads, turning them into team fight wins. It's kind of everything you want to see.
And unfortunately, mis-execution there from Rogue. I like kind of the couple looks that they gave us. I love the fact that we got to see a Yuumi take the LEC stage again, but Yuumi just cannot catch a break. And it seems like the LEC teams have downloaded exactly how to deal with this champion, whether it's a Nautilus, whether it's a Poppy. She's not catching any breaks.
Oof. Difficult. Of course, for Rogue, still have to see how high their ceiling is. Once again, they've taken down 2 of the weaker teams in the standings. Now they've lost to both Misfits and SK, 2-2 overall. See exactly how this is going to unfold for them, but a good day overall. Huge plays from Dreams. Clearly incredibly comfortable in that Yuumi matchup. That's the kind of proficiency that I love to see. So let's check out some of those highlights from SK's win. Let's see exactly what happened here in this game. Ooh, the pro view. Ladies and gentlemen, watch for the R button press. This is the really defining moment.
Hey, he flashed off the Q and hit the initial CC.
Ooh, and this TP. See, I was all eyes on Crownshot, and see, they were too, and that's kind of where it went wrong because they forgot that in an instant, the Vladimir can just blow up your entire team. So, God, Tides of Blood, such an incredibly strong skill.
Yeah, just annihilated there from Sacre. Level 16 just in time to pick up the Quadra.
Yeah, I feel like that was just waiting. I feel like he got most of that damage in that final fight. We were waiting for that big explosive Vladimir moment. And overall, just a fantastic showing from SK. This is what we wanted to see. Can teams that are predicted to be top teams dominate expected bottom teams? How much of a shakeup are we going to see here in the Summer Split? That was the question. Well, for now, SK winning the games we expect them to in so many instances. But of course, remember, you can give us your Kia player of the game if you guys want. We'll give you the options in a second. At All Esports is the place. As always, it's Selfmade, it's Crownshot, it's Dreams. I always want to vote supports because they have like the burden of execution, and Dreams was insane, but also Crownshot died in some situations where he shouldn't have and lived in some situations where he definitely shouldn't have.
What about Dreams? He like walks blind around a corner because his team's like fight right now, but he's too separated and he dies.
That's true, but he hooked like a Yuumi or a Ezreal like 3 times in a row.
Yeah, well, let's give it Dreams.
That's our choice. You guys can, of course, vote for what you want. Power democracy, baby. At All Esports on Twitter. And for me, I think when you look back at this game, I want to see what Rogue can bring in the weeks to come, what they can learn from this, because there are some great signs there, some good team fight cores, some good team fight fundamentals that I like to see from a team that has played for so much time together, but also waiting to see that kind of elevated ceiling and some of those basic mistakes taken away.
I want to see just kind of an easier composition for Rogue to execute on. They seem to, again, find their footing when they are in team fights, and I think that's the primary takeaway for Rogue. For me, looking at this iteration of SK, it wasn't just that they won the team fights, but I actually really like their decision-making about when they broke the lanes, who they were giving the plate gold to, when they decided to set up for their team fights. I think there was some really cool macro moments from them in this game, and not just another, you know, it's 5v5 time for SK. Selfmade got a huge lead early on an ex-champion.
I mean, I love 5v5 time for SK. It's always fun to watch. But Laure is ready with backstage with Crownshot. Let's see what he has to say.
Thank you very much, guys, and thank you for joining me after the game. You were on fire today. Tell me about the decision-making to grab the lead in this game.
Well, we knew we had a good matchup bot, and after we killed them 2v2, we knew that we can just swap top because Drake was also down, so we just knew we could swap and play for her. It was pretty simple.
Pretty simple, as you say, but we often see teams go for sloppy team fights and throw their advantage in this situation. So tell me about maintaining this lead and keeping a cool head in these situations.
Well, I would say we had prior in every lane pretty much. So we just knew if we just push and play with vision, they can't really do anything. We just have to play slow and yeah, they can't really do anything.
Easy game as a whole?
Yeah, I would say so.
Now, moving forward, you'll be playing versus Misfits and Vitality next week. So what do you think about the schedule?
Well, I think Vitality is kind of in a slump right now, so... but I think Misfits is playing pretty well, especially on stage, so I think it will be fun to play against them. Their bot lane is pretty good too, so it will be exciting.
Nice insights, and congrats again on the victory. We're going to take a short break, and actually Misfits will be playing after the break against Origin.
Heal now coming in. Crownshot got a body block. Well played to stop it. Crownshot now stepping forward. Still fearless. Moving into the void. They're going to destroy him. The cat does nothing. Catboy dies. Of course, CC will not stop. Oh my God, he gets him again. Here we go. Point and click. Assault and battery. That's going to be all it is. Eyes on the Yuumi though. Both home members locked up. Selfmade, can he get out? Is that going to be enough? Selfmade now set to fall. GA now being proc. Look at the backside of the fight. Woolite has gone down. Crownshot has taken out the enemy carry. Rogue trying to find an opportunity to force an engage here. Crownshot now in trouble. Keep your eyes on the Sivir. How much damage can Crownshot get out? Prophet is now turning back. This could be disastrous. Larssen going to get taken out, but no, the stun lands. Crownshot's going to get taken down. No! He manages to live. I cannot believe it. Vladimir is there for the double kill. What a turn for SK. It was all eyes on Crownshot, but it was not enough to take him down.
Welcome to ProView. Exclusive POV streams for every player in every game let you get closer to the action and get inside their minds. With Multiview, you can create your very own stream, unique to you, with up to 4 feeds. And with our advanced timeline, you can hone in on all the big plays that matter most to you. Watch LEC in a whole new way for €14.99 or get the All Access Pass for $19.99.